Thanks for checking out my video. Today we're going to be using these materials to work on our fine motor skills, our visual motor skills, our visual perception skills, and some bilateral coordination. I really like these materials because I can do something as simple or as kind of like a basic skill set as matching these colors to the paper, and then if the child already has those skills in their tool set, then I can use those skills and that knowledge of the color discrimination here. I can use those to then start working on other skills like fine motor, gluing with scissors, fine motor skills with scissors and gluing and the marker, and even just the placement of these objects onto the paper. So really we're working on a variety of different skills that can be graded up and down, so we can make it easier or a little bit more difficult depending on the particular child and the challenge that we want to present to them. And so that's why I really like these materials. So to start, I want to work on just some matching with colors, just to start out. So I'm going to get the glue stick, the marker, the glue, the scissors. I'm going to get all this out of the way. And then I'm going to maybe arrange my cardstock paper here by color as well, kind of like on a grid. And then maybe I'll get these foam guys out of the way for now. These little foam cutouts of the animals. And then I'll arrange my cardstock by color. So we can do a field of 4. We can do a visual field of just 1 and have our client or your kid, your child, match just 1 color at a time. 2 color, we can increase the visual field or decrease the visual field as much as or as little as we need to. So for this activity, I'm going to go ahead and increase it to 4. So we have a visual field of 4. And then I'm going to think about how I want to arrange my foam pieces, either around or maybe in a bag, that sort of thing. So now I can arrange these foam pieces around my visual field in whatever manner I choose. And any way I do it, I'm working on like a different skill. So if I want to really increase the visual field and the child's ability to scan throughout a larger visual field, then I can increase the visual field by putting my pieces all around and then having the visual field with different objects in it. That's another visual perception skill that we're working on. That's visual figure ground. So any way I arrange this is really working on a great skill that we're going to then take forward into other skills like reading and writing, that sort of thing. So this is the kind of base, these are the base skills that we need to then accomplish other academic skills. So we can have a big visual field, or we can take some of these pieces away, decrease our visual field over here, and then I'm also going to do the same with the paper as well, so that we're only going to work on a visual field of 1. We're going to start with yellow. I'm going to put that right in the middle, and I'm going to put these other pieces out of the way and really just work on matching the yellow to the yellow, that sort of thing. So we're establishing a connection between these foam cutouts here and our paper, that we're matching yellow to yellow. Maybe we're going to demonstrate that first one for our child. And then we can do another color. And then we're going to have our child match these ones. Maybe we can help them out with that sort of thing. And if we need to help them, one thing we can do is put kind of like a grid pattern on this, because we have 4 of each color. So I can cut these out eventually. So maybe I'll just put a couple dotted lines down the middle and a couple dotted lines down the middle this way. I'm always looking for another excuse for them to work on their fine motor skills with a marker and the scissors, so we'll eventually cut these out. And then maybe since we have this, we can have them work on some writing practice here with some pre-writing strokes. So we can help them with some vertical, horizontal, and intersecting lines, or we can just keep it all one way. So vertical, we could flip it, vertical. But for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and work on my intersecting lines. So I'm going to go follow my visual cue all the way down to the bottom, and then I'm going to stabilize my my arm, reposition my arm, stabilize it, and then keep it stabilized on the table as I move it across, intersect the line over to the other side. Now we have a little bit more definition and a visual cue as to where we're trying to put these foam pieces here. That we're going to put them in that rectangle right there that we have already marked out. So we can then either demonstrate that we want to have them put it there. Maybe we want to turn a little bit, give a little bit more space. Labeling the objects as they go in. Oh, dolphin, a lion, an elephant, and a giraffe. So we're demonstrating still. So we haven't glued anything down. We're still demonstrating. We're still building upon some of the fundamental skills that we want to establish before we get into more of the detail with the fine motor work, that sort of thing. So maybe we've already established that this is what we're doing here. We're matching the color of the foam cutout to the color paper here. So yellow to yellow, red to red, green to green, and blue to blue. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing, and now we can start gluing them down if we want. So before we start gluing, I'll just remove my pieces again and put everything over in one spot. And if we want to advance the skill set a little bit, remember we can increase the visual field, scatter our pieces around. We can have the child independently draw their own little grid, or maybe we'll give them some visual cues and they can do some connecting of the dots. We're working on our fine motor skills with the way that we hold the marker or the crayon. We're looking for a little stability of the marker or the crayon right here in this thenar web, the web space of our hand. We're looking for a good dynamic tripod grasp, maybe a grasp with extended fingers or a lateral tripod grasp. Those are all good things. We're working on our fine motor skills, stabilizing our arm on the table and repositioning it as we go. Intersect the line all the way over. So we can have the child participate in any level that we want and work on any of these skills that we want with just these simple materials. So maybe before we glue everything, I would like to just go ahead and have my student just make a grid while we have the marker out, while we're using these materials. So they can go ahead and complete these intersecting lines. And then we'll have a visual cue for the rest of our pieces as we move along here with this activity. Working on some good fine motor skills right now. Alright, now we have that. We can put it aside. And let's get back to the gluing part of this. So I'm going to arrange my visual field just to start with, just with one. And I'm going to use a glue stick because I like the glue for the grip and grasp strength, really working on some of these muscles in the hand. But I also really like this because it's a little bit cleaner. we're still working on some grip and grasp strength and even more fine motor ability here. So I'm going to keep the glue stick and see how that works. So the first one I am going to demonstrate for my student and say that I'm going to match this red elephant to my red card. And they're using the glue stick, or I'm using the glue stick to demonstrate. And I'm going to put it back there, and I'm going to put it in its little square there, little rectangle there. And then I'm going to have my student complete the rest of the activity, and I'm going to work on some visual motor skills as we go. So I'm going to put these pieces out one at a time so that we have to work our way from the left to find this piece, and then once they put it on, then I'll move my next piece over here to the right side. So it's on the left. We are going to find the dolphin, use our bilateral coordination, two hands together, nice pincer grasp with our left hand, good three-jaw chuck, maybe a little pincer grasp or a lateral tripod. These are the skills we're working on. We're using our non-dominant hand to stabilize our object. We could leave it on the table. We would like to work on our bilateral coordination, so we're just going to have them hold it, glue it on, and we're using our visual motor skills to scan for our target again, and our visual perception skills to spatially orient these objects. So they're not stacking them on top of each other. They have their own space, and they would like to just live there in their own space. So we're helping them really work on these great fine motor skills, some visual motor skills, and some visual perception. So I went ahead and finished up this red one, and now that we have a pretty solid understanding of what we're doing for this activity, we're going to put this maybe off to the side, or maybe we can even include it in our visual field if we want to. So yeah, maybe that's what we'll do. We'll leave it in the visual field, but it's completed, so we know that we have a pretty solid understanding of what we're doing here. And then I'm going to increase my visual field to four large pieces of paper here, and I'm also going to get the pile of foam cutouts, and I'm going to increase this challenge just a little bit here, putting them one at a time on the opposite side of the paper so that my child always has to reach across the midline of their body to retrieve the target here and then return back to the paper. So that's the challenge that I'm going to do now. So I'm going to have them complete the activity where we're always putting it on the opposite side. And then we're going to match those. So the blue one goes on this side. Again, I'm going from right to left and then back to my right side. The yellows are going to go over here, so I have to reach across my body to get the yellow back over to my target. Green, let's see, green is going to go over here so that my child has to reach across their body back to the piece of paper. Another green, across the midline of their body back to the paper. And again, we're also working on our visual motor skills. So, you know, as the distributor of these goods, I can really focus on going from the green side over to the yellow side, back to the, blue, back to the yellow, over to this side, over to that side. So I really have control over the flow and the skill that I want to develop as we're doing this activity. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those pieces on that side, on the side that I want them to cross over to. That's what we're going to do for the rest of this activity here. Alright, so I'm going to clear the field there, put it back down. So now we know what we're going to do before we start gluing. And let's see, I'm going to put my glue stick probably right in the middle so I can try to establish maybe hand dominance. If I put my glue stick in the middle, it's often the case that I don't grab it with two hands. I'm going to grab it with one. And so we can kind of determine a little bit, what sort of preference they have in terms of their hand dominance when we put it right in the middle. So put it in the middle. I'm going to determine a hand dominance. That's perfect. And then I'm going to start reaching across my body to get the piece. I'm going to match it to its corresponding rectangle here, and I'm going to glue it and put it on. Really getting some opportunity here to also use some pressure and kind of push down, get a little extra proprioceptive input as I push down on this object here. It's really getting some good input through the joints in my body, the ligaments and the tendons kind of talking to each other, telling your body where it is in space. That's a great opportunity to really get that experience there. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my yellows and so forth. I like that one right there. Pushing down. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of this exercise. So we could either be done with this activity for the day, or if we're still kind of working on some skills, maybe we want to work on a little bit more of our fine motor skills with our marker or some crayons or maybe our scissors here. We can continue this activity. I always like to give animals a little happy face. I hope that they're happy. So I'm just going to have my student maybe give a couple happy faces out there. I like the lions. So I'll just demonstrate that. Maybe they can work on a little happy face. Give this fish a little happy face there. Maybe it's good time to work on some identification, maybe a little orientation, spatial orientation, that sort of thing. So if we're going to say, oh, where's the eyes? We're not going to draw the eyes on the foot. The animal's eyes are on the head. So we can kind of work on that if we want to. Or we can just move right along and get into the scissor part of this activity where we use these grids now as kind of a visual cue for us to cut along, and then we can just make individual tiles here. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my visual field out of the way here, get it all free and clear of the clutter, so that I know what I'm working on here is this, and I'm going to be cutting these right along the line. Maybe help your student to orient the scissors correctly. We always want to use safety, so some hand-over-hand assistance is okay. Whatever level of assistance you need to ensure safety is good. If we want to really increase our bilateral coordination challenge, we will remove the table surface and we'll have the child use the strength of their upper extremities to really stabilize this paper here as we're going to cut it. And we're going to go ahead and just cut right along this line. Maybe we want a little bit more stability, so we can go ahead and put our arms back down on the table to stabilize, really so that we're able to isolate our fine motor skills. We're getting a good pincer grasp or maybe a three-jaw chuck grasp with this paper here. We're getting some nice finger opposition to the thumb, and we're doing our cutting skills, which is really increasing our visual motor integration ability right along the line there. Perfect. Now we have these little tiles. I'm going to finish this yellow one, stabilize our arms, cut along the line. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish that cutting activity up with the rest of my tiles. So now we have our pile of animal tiles here that we can go ahead and kind of clean up a little bit, and then we're going to save these. We're going to save these materials for future activities. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of stockpile up our supply of materials that we can use while we're at home with our student, so that later on in the future we can do things like, give me the yellow bunny, that kind of thing, or we can play different varieties of games just with identifying the shape, the form and the color, that sort of thing. So we've worked on our fine motor skills today with the glue stick, with our marker, with our scissors, and we've been working on our visual motor skills with the placement of our pieces from one side to the other, maybe vertically. We've been working on our bilateral coordination and integration of the two sides of our body by reaching across the body to pick up the pieces and to match. And we've also been working on our bilateral coordination as we've been stabilizing the object with our non-dominant hand and using one of our classroom utensils, the marker, the glue, that sort of thing, to either glue it the glue or the scissors to either glue it and then to cut it. So we've been working on a lot of skills today, and now we have materials for future use. Thanks for checking out my video. I hope you found it useful. Please feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions on how to implement these strategies with your student.